and I never believed in God until the day I lost everything. And then when I was shattered, drowning in silence, I heard a voice I could not explain, a voice that changed everything. Before I dive deeper, let me pause and say something very important. To all my subscribers and faithful supporters, thank you. Your comments, your encouragement, and your time mean more than words can say. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I was 42 years old. My name is Rachel Whitman, born and raised in Dayton, Ohio, raised by loving, hard-working parents who went to church every Sunday, but somehow, I just never believed. Even as a child, I found the idea of God strange. Why would a loving God allow people to suffer? Why would he hide if he truly cared? I asked those questions too early, too loudly, and too often. My Sunday school teacher called me rebellious. But I was not rebellious, I was just curious and stubborn. As I grew older, I buried myself in logic. Science made sense. Facts comforted me. I got a degree in biochemistry, married a mechanical engineer named Tom Whitman, and had one beautiful child, our daughter, Lily. Lily was the only thing in life that ever made me pause. She was born with such softness. She would ask me questions like, "Mommy, who made the stars? And do you think angels are real?" And I would just smile and say, "Sweetheart, those are just stories." But a part of me always wondered why she never stopped asking. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in Cincinnati. Tom and I had built a decent life. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. He knew about my beliefs, or lack thereof, and respected them. We both agreed to raise Lily with the freedom to choose what she believed in. So we kept things neutral. No church, no spiritual talk, just love, stability, and plenty of science books. Then came the fall of 2022, the season where everything I knew, everything I trusted, began to collapse like sand under my feet. It was a Thursday. I remember it like a scar. I had packed Lily's lunch and watched her walk to the school bus from the kitchen window. She was wearing her blue hoodie, the one with the tiny cloud print, and her favorite sneakers. By noon, I got a call from her school. "Mrs. Whitman," the voice said, "Lily did not show up for class today." That did not make sense. I saw her get on the bus. I called the school again. Then the bus company. Then the police. By 5 p.m., Tom and I were sitting in our living room, staring into nothing, while officers searched the neighborhood. Her phone was off. Her friends had not seen her. The bus driver claimed she never got on. That night, something inside me cracked. I held her pillow against my chest, breathing in her scent. My arms felt heavy, my chest ached, the world had become unfamiliar. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. All I could do was think, over and over again, this cannot be happening. We searched for weeks, flyers, social media posts, news outlets, search teams, bloodhounds, drones, everything. People came to our door with casseroles and sad eyes. Church ladies offered to pray. I thanked them politely, but brushed off their God talk like lint. I could not afford to think about faith. I was focused on reality. And reality was cruel. Tom tried to stay strong, but I saw the way his hands trembled when he picked up Lily's drawings from the fridge. I saw how he sat in the dark, after dinner, just staring. The police found no evidence of foul play, no witnesses, no notes. It was as if she vanished into the air. And then came the night that still burns in my memory. It was late October, leaves were falling like fire from the trees. I had not slept in 3 days. My hair was unwashed, my lips dry and cracked. I stood in Lily's room, staring at her bookshelf. Her little night lamp was shaped like the moon. I had not turned it off in weeks. That night, I dropped to my knees, not to pray, but to scream silently into the carpet. My nails dug into the fibers. My face was wet with tears. But then something shifted. A strange stillness filled the room. The air was thick, as if the very atmosphere had paused. And then, I heard it. A voice. It did not come from outside. It did not echo from the hallway. It came from deep inside my chest, yet somehow all around me. It said just one thing, "Rachel." I froze. I looked around. Nothing moved. The lamp still glowed. My heart pounded like a war drum. Again the voice said, "Rachel," but this time it carried something I could not name. It was not a threat, not a hallucination, not even human. It was gentle, warm, steady, and for the first time in my life, I was afraid of silence. After that night, in Lily's room, everything inside me changed. It was not sudden, it was not dramatic, but it was deep, like a needle had pierced through the layers of logic I had built my life on. For days I could not sleep. Not because of grief, but because of what I had heard. The voice, my name spoken in a way no human could imitate. A calm, firm whisper that felt like it had come from inside the walls, or from the air itself, or from somewhere else. I was too terrified to admit. I told no one about it. Not even Tom. I feared he would think I had snapped. And to be honest, I questioned it too. Maybe I had. Maybe grief was reshaping my brain. Maybe the exhaustion had cracked my sanity. But deep in my gut, I knew better. Science had been my shield all my life. And now, in the middle of my storm, science had nothing left to offer me. The investigation into Lily's disappearance was going nowhere. By the second month, the police stopped calling daily. The news cycle moved on. Friends stopped checking in. Even Tom started speaking of Lily in past tense. It broke me. One evening, I found myself standing in front of a therapist's office. I had not planned to be there. My car had taken a different turn, after a grocery run. My fingers dialed the number. My legs walked me up the steps. It was as if I had no control anymore. Her name was Dr. Claire. She wore bright scarves, and never blinked too much. After our third session, she said something that stuck with me. "You keep looking for something rational, Rachel, but not everything hurting you lives in your mind. Some things are deeper." I stared at her, unblinking. And then she asked, "Have you ever considered exploring something spiritual?" I almost laughed, but I did not. I just said, "I do not believe in God." She nodded like she had heard it before. "You do not have to believe. Just listen." That same week, I started having strange dreams, vivid, haunting images that clung to me like fog, even after I woke up. In one dream, I stood in the middle of a dark forest, calling Lily's name. No one answered, but then the trees parted, and there was a path, bathed in light. In another, I was underwater, drowning, but I looked up, and there was Lily, reaching down with a small flashlight in her hand. She said nothing, but her eyes were calm, like she was not afraid. Each time I woke up, my body would be trembling, my sheets soaked in sweat. And yet, there was something peaceful about those dreams, something almost guided. I started writing them down. And that was when I found it. In one of my notebooks, while flipping pages to find a grocery list, I saw a message, 4 words, written in my own handwriting. But I had no memory of writing it. It said, "Look where you fear." I stared at those words for hours. They made no sense, and yet they echoed something in me. A knowing, a pull. I was not losing my mind. Something or someone was trying to reach me. One night, while Tom was asleep, I walked into Lily's room again. I turned on her moon lamp and sat on the edge of her bed. The silence felt thicker than ever. I whispered her name. "Lily." No answer. Of course, but then I remembered the words. "Look where you fear." I looked up. There on her top shelf was a wooden box. I had never touched it. It was one of those decorative keepsake boxes you put baby hair in. Old letters. She had found it in a thrift shop and loved it because it looked like something ancient. I pulled it down, heart pounding. It pulled it down, heart pounding. My fingers were ice cold. Inside, there was a stack of folded papers. I opened the first one. It was a letter, addressed to me. But not from Lily. It was from my mother. My mother had died 3 years before Lily disappeared. I had not known she wrote anything before her death. But there it was. Her handwriting, her signature, her tone. The letter was dated a few weeks before she passed. It began like any letter would. Updates. A few memories. But then it took a turn. She wrote, "Rachel, I know you do not believe in God. But I pray you will. One day, I see the way you hold on to science, like it is your lifeboat. But sweetheart, some storms are bigger than knowledge. And someday, something will shake you to your knees. When that happens, listen. He will speak. But you must be still. I dropped the letter. My breath caught in my chest. My ears buzzed. I picked it up again, hands trembling. How did she know? How did she write those words 3 years ago? Not knowing Lily would vanish. Not knowing I would be broken in this exact way. That night, I cried in a way I never had before. Not the rage cry of loss. Not the dry sobs of exhaustion. This time, it was something else. Something old. Something ancient, that had been buried deep inside me. Rising. And then once more, in that stillness, the voice returned. Rachel. And this time, it said something more. She is not gone. I gasped. I looked around. Still no one there. No lights flickered. No shadows moved. But my bones knew the truth. Something holy had entered my pain. From that moment, I began to search differently. I stopped relying only on evidence. I began listening, to the silence, to my dreams, to the small voice I had once ignored all my life. I still called the police. I still checked in with detectives. But now, I also followed something deeper. I drove to places I had never been before, based on dreams, or strange nudges, that made no sense. And one day, that nudge would lead me straight to her. But that is for the final chapter. The human brain has its limits. Mine had been stretched, broken and rewired by grief, confusion, and something far greater than logic could explain. What began as a desperate search for my daughter had become a journey I never expected, a journey toward the very thing I had spent my life mocking faith. After reading my mother's letter, and hearing the voice that whispered Rachel, she is not gone, I knew I had to follow this unseen guide. I could not explain it. I could not measure it. But I trusted it more than anything I had ever learned in a classroom. In the weeks that followed, I started waking up with impressions. Not visions, not hallucinations, but nudges, gentle but firm. Places, names, feelings. One morning, I woke up with 3 words pounding in my head. Green Hollow Trail. It was a hiking trail, 2 towns away. I had never been there. I had never even heard of it. But the name would not leave me alone. So I drove there. Alone. It was mid-November. The trail was quiet and cold. Dry leaves crunched under my boots. A thin mist hung between the trees like a veil. I walked for nearly an hour, trying not to feel foolish. Then I saw it. A pink ribbon, faded and fluttering on a tree branch. My heart stopped. Lily used to tie pink ribbons to everything. Her backpack, her pencil case, even the doorknobs at home. She said pink made the world feel softer. I walked closer. It was weather-worn, but clearly not old enough to have been there for years. I stood there, staring at it, when the wind changed. A chill ran through me, not from the cold, but from the unmistakable feeling that I was not alone. And then I heard it. Not a whisper this time. Not in my head. Not in the air. But a voice, clear and strong, right behind me. Rachel. I turned around. No one. But I knew that voice. It was the same voice from Lily's room. The same voice that had spoken into my shattered grief. It had followed me here. And then it said, keep walking. I walked, deeper into the woods, away from the marked path. My breath quickened, and fear clung to me like fog. But the voice stayed near, guiding me not through words now, but through presence. I could feel where to turn, where to stop, where to look. That was when I found it. A small crumbling cabin. Abandoned, its roof sagged inward, and ivy covered most of its frame. But there near the entrance, was another ribbon. Pink, tied to a rusty nail. I ran toward it. Inside the cabin, everything was covered in dust and silence. But in the far corner, buried beneath an old blanket, I found it, Lily's bracelet. The silver one with her initials engraved. The one she never took off. My knees buckled, tears poured from me like a flood. She had been here, and suddenly, I understood. This was not just about finding her physically. This was about finding faith, about learning to hear when logic goes silent. The police returned with me the next day. They brought dogs and drones. Deep in the woods behind the cabin, they found fresh clues: clothing fibers, a shoe print. A nearby hunter's cam had caught blurry footage of someone resembling Lily weeks ago. It was real. I was not crazy. Lily had been here. She might still be close. Search teams combed the area for days. It was in the early hours of the third morning when a call came in. A farmer 5 miles away had reported seeing a confused barefoot girl wandering near his barn. It was her. Lily. She was weak, cold, but alive. They said she had been taken, hidden, possibly escaped and wandered for days. But she could not say much. Trauma had locked her memory in pieces. Still, when I sat beside her in the hospital, holding her hand, she looked up and whispered, "Mom, he told me you would come." I froze. "Who?" I asked. Her lips trembled. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "The man with the kind voice. He was with me in the dark. He told me you would not stop. He said you heard him." I burst into tears, because I had. It was real. Every dream, every whisper, every pull. The voice had not only guided me, it had stayed with her too. God had never left us. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Tom cried more than I had ever seen him cry. He held Lily like he would never let go. We sat together in silence sometimes, not needing to speak, just breathing the same air as our miracle girl. And me, I no longer called myself an atheist. I could not. Not after the voice, not after the dreams, not after the forest, not after the impossible reunion that defied every natural explanation. God had spoken. And now, I speak too. Not in churches, not in lecture halls, but here, with you, with anyone who will listen. Because I believe someone out there needs to hear this. God still speaks. He speaks in silence. He speaks in sorrow. He speaks when you have no one left to listen. And if you are willing to be still, you will hear him. Thank you for walking with me through this journey. From disbelief to faith, from fear to hope, from loss to the miracle of finding my daughter again. I pray that if you are searching, if your soul is cracked and weary, you will listen closely, because he might just be whispering your name too.